Welcome back to Pod Games, and we're doing another Deck Tech episode where we are analysing and reviewing Blight's Curse from Lorwyn Eclipsed. You get a -1 counter, you get a -1 counter, you get a -1 counter, you get a -1 counter. Right, let's dive into the unboxing and opening up the deck and see what value and yield we get out of the deck.
Right, let's unpack this Blight's Curse commander deck and find out what the yield is. And it says, give Auntie a kiss. So, as always, you get one of these little informational leaflets with a poster. That's over there. You get one of these pre-built little storage boxes. Some punchable tokens. And then the deck itself. And then starting with usual, so you get treasure, sapling, snake, treasure tokens, some zombie tokens, all there. Some more punchable tokens. Starting with the commander, so you get Auntie or Cursed Wretch, and then the Reaper King No More. They're the two commanders for this deck. You get a how to play card. The rares, you get a Wicker Smith's Tools, a Sinister Gnarbark, Eventide Shadow, Aberrant Return, Tread Tiller, Grave Venerations, Oft Nabbed Goat, Village Pillagers, Pucker's Covenant, Ferrofor Young View, a Tree of Perdition, Vernor Fen, Festering Thicket, a Necro Skitter, Ignoble Hierarch, Nesting Grounds, a Massacre Girl, Known Killer, Grave Titan, a Veraska Betrayal Sting, the Scorpion God, Lydiana's Death Wielder, Chimil the Inner Sun, a Carnifex Demon, Puppeteer Click, Dusk Urchins, Black Sun Zenith, Painful Truths, a Persist, Midnight Banshee, a Chain Reaction, Arch Fiend of Ifnir, Channeler Initiate, so a Hatra Venzia of Poisons, Glisser Sunslayer, Everlasting Torment, Assassin's Trophy, a Grim Puppet, Canyon Slough, Sheltered Thicket, Exotic Orchard, Smouldering Marsh, a Cinderglade, Dragon Skull Summit, Rootbound Crag, Woodland Cemetery, Lasting Tarfire, Burning Curiosity, Hoarder's Greed, Blowfly Infestation, Fire Covenant, Soaring, Arcane Signet, Command Tower, Cathartic Reunion, Skin Render, Soul Snuffers, Incremental Blight, Infernal Grasp, Evolution Sage, Devoted Druid, Flourishing Defenses, Harmonize, Putrefy, Binding the Old Gods, Korrath Knight, Tangent Clasp, Savage Lands, Ifnir Deadlands, a Night Whisper, Wintered Elder, Wicker Boelder, a Terminate, Commander Sphere, Cathartic Pyre, Evolving Wilds, Stereomorphic Expanse, Path of Ancestry, Riveteer's Overlook, Rakdos Carnarium, Cruel Turf, Bulgari Rock Farm, and then 8 swamps, 4 mountains, 6 forests. Now to check the deck specs.
Let's kick off with the average CMC. So it's a 3.67 average CMC of the deck. You've got 16 3-drops, 15 2-drops. The average is brought up a little bit by those 5 and 6, where you've got 8 and 6, which isn't bad, to be honest. The assault score is 0.27, but out of the box, it's not the worst deck to play against for your opponents. Jumping into the combo, so this is very much a bracket 3 deck because there's 2 infinite combos built into the deck. Both the combos leverage Blowfly Infestation, and the way that the combos work, the way you start with step 1, you put a -1/-1 counter on any creature you control with toughness equal to 1. The creature dies as a state-based action due to having 0 toughness. And then in the first combo, we are doing it with Hapatra, Vizier of Poisons. She deals combat damage to a player. You may put a -1/-1 counter on a target creature. Whenever you put 1 or more -1/-1 counters on a creature, create a 1/1 green snake creature token with Death Touch. So you would get Hapatra to attack, which will then trigger Blowfly Infestation. You would resolve Hapatra's trigger by creating a 1/1 snake, resolve the Blowfly Infestation trigger by putting a -1/-1 counter on any creature you control with toughness 1, and then you repeat step 2. Every time you put a -1/-1 counter on a snake, it will then create another one, and then it will just keep going and going, and then that's an infinite loop. The second one, once again, is with Blowfly Infestation, but this is with Flourishing Defense. You put a -1/-1 counter on any creature you control with toughness equal to 1. The creature dies to a state-based action due to having 0 toughness once again. And then Flourishing Defense, which is the other enchantment, whenever a -1/-1 counter is put on a creature you control, create a 1/1 green elf creature token. So then once again, you resolve Defense's trigger, creating a token. You then put another counter on the new elf, triggering Blowfly Infestation. You will die, you create another one, and then you'd create an infinite combo. Now, they're great as infinite combos, but there isn't much that it kind of does. You kind of need to add a third card into the mix, which is Grave Venerations, which when a creature dies, it then deals 1 damage to each opponent, and then you gain 1 life. And then when you trigger the infinite combo, so there is like a third combo for the win com that you need to include in this, it will then win you the game. Moving on to the value. So the total value of the commander deck is £46.10. 68 reprints came in at £38.63. 14 new cards came in at £5.43, and then the 18 basic lands were £2.04. Card type distribution, creatures were 28, spells are 33, and then lands are 39, so very much a spell heavy deck. The mana distribution, this is going to be a black heavy deck with the life drain and the -1 counters coming in at 35%. Red was 26%, and then the green mana was 30%. Now looking at the CRISY score. For consistency, it scores a 7. The reason why it scores a 7 is that the deck completely lacks traditional tutors, so there's no tutors in the deck, but features an extreme redundancy of -1/-1 enablers. There's about 20 pieces of -1/-1 counter enablers in the deck, which fulfills the synergy redundancy to reach a base score of 7. And then there is a draw package, which is extremely strong, generating about 46 pieces of draw, thanks to Auntie Or acting as the massive draw engine, alongside repeatable sources like the Scorpion God and Glycerson Slayer. For resilience, it scores a 6, so the deck features 2 infinite loops, one with Hapatra, Visor of Poisons and Blowfly Infestation, and the second one with Flourishing Defenses, with multiple payoffs supported by a moderate recursion profile, including like Aberrant Return and Puppeteer Click. However, it does suffer because the deck's card advantage and drain potential significantly drop if the commander is repeatedly removed. Interaction, it scores a 7 out of 10 with a massive 26 pieces of total interaction. The deck excels at creature control through -1/-1 counters and spot removal. However, because it has 0 counter spells and free spells, it relies on the symmetric board wipes like Black Sun Zenith and Carnifex Demon to kind of wipe the board, which kind of limits the score. Speed, so it scores a 5 out of 10 for speed, generating only 18 pieces of fast mana. The deck relies on mid-range synergy game plan. After in the CMC, so it's around just under 4 CMC, it kind of helps it a little bit. The commander being sat at 4 CMC as well makes the calculated execution turn for its primary engine or Blowfly combo is typically a turn 7 to 8 win, perfectly aligning with the baseline of a casual speed deck. Based on the yield, we managed to generate, it's an extra £1.10 worth of value from the deck. Isn't the greatest yield compared to the other commander deck that we've had before, but the CRISY score that it kind of provides is 7.35 is the overall score of the deck. That's the specs. You'll get a holistic view on the screen now, but yeah, that's the specs in a whole. Let's jump over to the rankings. So compared to this deck and the first commander deck that we reviewed, Dance of the Elements, it jumps in at second place, purely let down by the yield of the deck. So basically, because you've only got an extra £1.10 worth of value, it kind of brings the score down and sits in that second place, even though it does score higher on a performance point of view. Let's jump into the game strategy. In terms of mulligan priorities, you want to keep 3 lands, ideally have 1 of each of your colours, have an early ramp spell like Soul Ring or a Channel Initiate, and a low cost engine like Hapatra or Dreadtiller. The things that you want to avoid, you want to kind of avoid your hand being clogged with your expensive 5 to 7 CMC payoffs without having any early game mana enablers. In terms of how the game kind of runs and your core strategy, your ramp and setup, so deploy early ramp with your ignoble hierarchs and your devoted druid. This establishes early synergy pieces like your Hapatra or Sinister Narbak. Then once you've got that set up, you deploy your commander, so you cast Auntie All. Her present turns every -1/-1 counter effect into a card draw or life drain engine, fundamentally shifting the game's momentum. You then want to distribute your counters, so use repeatable engines like Carnifex Demon and the Scorpion God, or symmetric wipes like Black Sun Zenith to blanket the board with -1/-1 counters, drawing a massive amount of cards and then draining your opponents. And then to execute the win, you either overwhelm the board with your tokens from Flourishing Defenses, steal opponents' boards with the Reaper King, which is a great card as like a side quest within the deck to steal a bunch of your opponent's creatures, or assemble one of the 2 combos with Blowfly Infestation and Hapatra, or with Flourishing Defenses, looping that alongside Grave Venerations to drain the entire table. Let's jump into the upgrades of the deck. We're going to add 5 cards, we're going to cut 5 cards, all for a price of under £50. So let's start with the cards that we want to add. First card that I'm going to add is Bastion of Remembrance. This is a relatively cheap card, it's like 36p. I included this card as an alternative to Grave Venerations, and it synergizes incredibly well with the 2 infinite combos within the deck, which takes them from being just standard infinite combos into the win cons of the deck. Adding this in kind of provides you more redundancy in the deck, which is always a good thing. The second card that I'm adding is Maha Its Feathers Knight. This is going to be the most expensive card that we're going to add as part of this upgrade, but what a great include this is. Not only is it a scary, high-powered creature with flying and trample, but the ward makes opponents think twice about removing it, because ultimately you will end up losing 2 cards. The card that you're going to use to remove the creature, and then they've got to discard another one as well. The icing on the cake with this card is the fact that it makes your -1 counters into spot removal for all your opponent's creatures, because it puts all their toughness to 1. So as you're blanketing the board, you can kind of start killing your opponent's creatures, which will then help trigger your Gravekeeper to kind of then take their creatures, or just kind of help carve the way through for you to get an attack through. And the Maha's price comes in at around £19. That's the cheapest average price you can find for it. The third card we're adding is Obelisk Spider. So this is £3.39. This is a great defensive creature to have with its high toughness stat line, making it a safe attacker to get -1 counters on your opponent's creatures, or just getting through so for some free chip damage, because no one's going to want to attack it to put a -1 counter to lose their creature, especially if you combo with Maha. It also has reached out with you any pesky flyers that your opponents may have, but its second ability is the real gem here, and it synergizes so well with the counter drain theme within the deck, and makes your infinite combos a legitimate win con. The fourth card that we are adding is Persistent Constrictor. So this is once again one of the more expensive cards we're going to include as part of this upgrade, but it's well worth it. Not only does it life drain your opponents on each of their turns, but also allows you to add a free -1/-1 counter as well. And then the last card that I'm kind of adding to kind of help bolster the card draw engine even more is a Generous Patron. This is a £3.72 card. This is a great draw engine card. For every time you put a counter on one of your opponent's creatures, you get to draw a card. The other side benefit is that it has support too. So because the way the -1 counters and +1/+1 counters work, they kind of cancel each other out. You can use the support 2 to take 2 counters off either your own creatures, your opponent's creatures, and then utilize the other elements to add counters back onto them to draw more cards and get more value from your opponent's creatures, which is great. The total value for the upgrades comes in at £42. £42.76, which is under that £50 target price, which is great, which means you have a little bit more to play with if you want to go and upgrade the mana base. I typically don't like to upgrade the mana bases in these decks, but there are a few cards you can kind of take out to bolster your mana. Now, we've added 5 cards, so we have to remove 5 cards. So the 5 cards that I'm removing is Grave Titan. Reason for removing this particular card, it's a very expensive kind of 6/6. It has Death Touch. Whenever this creature enters or attacks, it creates 2/2 black zombie creature tokens, which is great, but it doesn't really synergize with the deck specifically. It's a nice to have, but this is better suited in a different token generation deck, not here. And the fact that it's got 2 toughness also makes it very difficult to kind of stack -1/-1 counters on it. It isn't really the greatest card. It's quite expensive for what it is. That's the first card that we are removing. The second card is Hoarder's Greed. It's a clunky 4 converted mana cost draw spell that relies on inconsistent clash mechanics. So rather than your established countering it, so you gotta hope that you win the clashes to get the benefit from this. So yeah, it's a bit of a gamble card for the price that you kind of pay for it. Third removal is Liliana's Death Wielder. So this is a 7 cost planeswalker. It's far too expensive and vulnerable for the deck. It's very slow and gives kind of like incremental value. Yes, it puts -1/-1 counters, and you can destroy target creatures which have the counters, but you're never kind of going to ever reach that -10 to remove all cards from your graveyard and put them onto the battlefield. There are better cards you can kind of include into the deck. The fourth card we're removing is Tree of Perdition, and I love Tree of Perdition. This is a great card, and it's great synergies you can do with swapping people's life totals and -1, like stacking -1 counters on Tree of Perdition and swapping. But it's a little bit of a fragile mechanic to get going. You've got to kind of stack 13 counters or 12 counters on Tree of Perdition, then swap the life total and then try and take someone out of the game. It's a good card, but not suited here. There are better things you can kind of do to leverage your counters. And then the last card that we are removing is Chimmel the Inner Sun. It's a 6 mana artifact that's entirely off theme and too slow for the deck's like intended mid-range execution. Yes, you get to discover with this, but you're not really doing much rummaging and discovering in the deck anyway, so this could be suited in a better place. Right, so that's the review and breakdown of the Blight's Curse deck, so the second commander deck from Lorwyn Eclipsed. Hope you've enjoyed the video. If you want to buy any of the cards on display, there will be links in the description below to all my marketplaces, like the Card Trader, Card Market. If you want to join Card Trader and start selling yourself, there is an affiliate link down there as well. Blight's Curse is an actually fantastic, powerful commander deck. I know the yield wasn't that great in comparison, but out of the box, it comes at that slightly stronger bracket 3 mark, and then with a few upgrades that we've kind of suggested, you can make this deck into a very much a powerhouse life drain deck, which is very much in the Jund wheelhouse. But yeah, thanks for joining. Thanks for sticking with me this far. If you please like, comment, and subscribe, it's greatly appreciated. All your feedback goes a very long way to kind of making these videos better and trying to improve everything we do here at Pod Games. So thanks for joining the pod, and see you in the next one. Bye.